Okay, so I'm back on my favorite topic. I don't need paper on this one. I still repeat from my first 14 minutes of glory a couple of weeks ago that this is smokes and mirrors, Madam Speaker. Freezing of assessments does nothing to help the average tax-paying homeowner, business owner here in the province of New Brunswick. Because the government of the day can decide to undo the 50% cut that we put in the provincial rate for the businesses and so on, right? They can say, hey, you know what, we didn't support that years ago, which they didn't, Madam Speaker. It was loud and clear. I've watched it very closely. I've been watching it since 1998. And they were not interested at all in reducing that provincial rate. But our government did. In 2018, we made that commitment. When elected, we'll cut that rate in half. I believe it was done in the year of 2023. Not only did we cut the rate in half, but we pulled nursing homes. We pulled senior citizens' homes out of the, we've got owner-occupied, we've got non-owner-occupied, we have non-res, which is businesses, and I think it's called other, again, it's in my notes and I'll clarify tomorrow when I get back at it. So there's different types of businesses that fall into that other section, and it was nursing homes, senior citizens' homes were a part of that. So while we had a 50% discount on non-owner occupied, we applied a 15% discount to that sector that had the nursing homes and senior citizens' homes and farmland and so on. Hospitals, I believe, fall into that category. And we had a 15% discount on the non-residential rate, which is the businesses. So by pulling senior citizens' homes and nursing homes out of that category, we put them in with the non-owner occupied, in with the apartment buildings, so they could have a 50% discount on their provincial portion of their property taxes. And I hope this government is going to undo the good work that we did. Had so many promises that they've made. Again, as I mentioned before, you know, historically, they're a tax and spend kind of government. Well, the spending has been rampant, as we all know, but they haven't started putting those tax rates up yet. So I'm just wondering where they're going. And I worry they're going to put the nursing homes and the senior citizens' homes back where they were. I'm worried they're going to undo that 50% discount on the tax rate. Well, they said, well, we froze assessments. Oh, yeah, but wait a minute. That doesn't matter. They froze assessments in 2018 as well. It didn't help then. It caused a whole lot of chaos for the department, total chaos. And I believe it was 2017 when the fast track, thank you, fast track, there. We all remember that, Madam Speaker. It wasn't a pretty day, and that was the Brian Gallant government. And our Premier of today was behind the scenes on that, by the way. She was there, behind the scenes, allowed it to happen. So I worry, are they going to fast track it again? Are they going to undo that 50% tax cut? Are they going to undo the 15% tax cut like they did many years ago? Because when our previous Premier was the Finance Minister under David Alward, I've got the year in my notes. I'll find it tomorrow and confirm it for you. I think 2013, a commitment was made to reduce the tax rate on the non-residential section, which is businesses, by 15%. It was on its way. There were 2 years of reductions over a 4-year commitment. In come the new Brian Gallant government, and in seconds, moments of time, undone, back up to where it was. So this is my fear. This is my fear. Are they gonna, is their past gonna precede them?
Madam Speaker, we're here to discuss a bill that talks about the property tax in the year ahead, and the member opposite has been talking about all the years, but she hasn't been talking about the 6 years that their government did nothing.
This is not a point of order. This is a disagreement. Go back to the bill. I will ask the member to go back to the bill when you get back in the House. Being 6 o'clock, I adjourn the House. Resuming debate on Bill 22. I recognize the member for Sunbury, Ormoc-2 Sunbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the movie Groundhog Day comes to mind to be here today. As they say, third time's a charm. It's the third time I've been up on 22. And we'll wrap it up today. So, Madam Speaker, I find it interesting that the bill reads an act respecting property tax affordability measures. Madam Speaker, this has nothing to do with tax. Again, I repeat, this is assessments. Assessments fall under Service New Brunswick, taxes fall under finance. Two totally separate entities. And to think that freezing assessments is going to help property owners in the province of New Brunswick, I've mentioned it before, I'll say it again. The province can undo the fact that we cut the provincial rate in half for apartment owners and cottage owners. They can put it right back up to where it was. It doesn't matter what they do with assessments. All 89 local governments can increase the rate. Doesn't matter what the assessments are. They'll do what they have to do to make sure that their budget pressures are taken care of. So I don't understand this for the life of me. And if this is the first step in local government reform, I'm not very hopeful about what's coming next, because this is not a good start. It solves nothing. So I know we can't use props, but I do have in front of me my property assessment notice, and any property owner in the province can go home and have a peek at their own. Nowhere on this, one little spot it does it refer to taxes. It states in big, black, bold caps, this is not a bill, and it comes out every January. This is not a bill. It's the real property assessment. Shows our value as of January 1st of that year. The only reference to taxes at all on this bill is a reference to spike protection, which prevents your assessment for taxation from increasing more than 10% per year, excluding new construction and/or major improvements. The Department of Finance and Treasury Board will issue your property tax notice in March. Everybody got that? Good. Thank you. So in March, we get our real property tax notice. And on this property tax notice, on the top of the tax notice, it shows the community, the local government that we have our property located in. And down on the right, it says, contact us for any questions. Please contact Finance and Treasury Board for any questions that you might have. So it's very confusing for New Brunswickers, Madam Speaker. And time after time, I've asked people when they come to me upset about their property tax bill, what level of government they're upset with. And they get upset with the province, Madam Speaker. And the reason why is because New Brunswick is one of two provinces in Canada that has what we call a centralized system. It's just us and Prince Edward Island. Every other province in Canada, the property tax bill comes from their local government. I live in Oromocto, so if we were like Nova Scotia, I would get my property tax bill from Oromocto. Being in a military town, as you know I am, second largest base in the Commonwealth, Suffield, Alberta is the largest. We have a lot of military people who come our way, and they're totally lost on trying to figure out why they're getting the bill from the province of New Brunswick and why they're paying the province of New Brunswick. So it's very confusing for people, and they don't really understand how their own local government sets the rate. And also they don't understand that they don't pay provincial property taxes on their owner-occupied home, again, unless they are, their property is sitting on more than half a hectare of land, which is equivalent to 1 1/4 acres of land. Anyways, part of the confusion with a lot of this when it comes to assessments and asking for an appeal that you're not happy with your assessment. A few years ago, it was changed here in the province of New Brunswick in 2021, where our assessment statement and our property tax bills were separated. So forever, as a young woman, when I owned a home, every March I would get my statement. It would be my property tax bill and my assessment on the same statement. And it would tell you you've got 30 days to appeal your assessment if you're not happy. So you had until maybe the end of March to appeal your assessment. But when the Auditor General in the 2017 report made a recommendation that we have our bills and our assessment separated, by the way, that was not done by the previous Brian Glant government, but we did get that done in 2021. So now our assessments come out in January. The bill still comes out in March, and I'm sure every MLA in this room gets calls from their constituents in March saying, I'm really upset about my property tax bill and I want to appeal it. Anybody ever get those kind of calls? Because I do. Well, they're too late, because you can't appeal your property tax bill. You can only appeal your assessment. And if you miss that notice on the bottom of your assessment telling you that, it's too late. There's a gentleman that lives in my riding. I was talking to him the other day. I said, Dave, do you mind if I bring up your visit in my office? He said, no, Mary, you go right ahead. So he lives in the Wasis area in my riding. And he said, I don't want to appeal my assessment. I agree with the assessment, but I'm not happy with the taxes I'm paying. This is outrageous. It's gone up so much in the last 5 years. I just don't understand it. I talked before about a neighbor of mine and a good friend of mine who moved here from Ontario 5 years ago in 2020. And when she moved here, she was paying $5,000 a year in our town for her property taxes. And today, she is paying $9,000. In 5 years, her property tax bill has gone from $5,000 to $9,000. No major improvements on her home, no big changes. This is just an increase in her tax. And why? It's because assessments have gone up significantly, and of course the local government, not just ours, but many across the province, have budget pressures, and so they've been able to benefit from the increase in the assessment. Sometimes they increase the rate, sometimes they drop the rate. Sometimes they keep it the same, but with the increase in assessments, it's gone much to their favor. But here she is, almost doubled in her property taxes in this very short period of time. Now, if Service New Brunswick freezes assessments, which will be effective apparently in 2026, the local governments will increase their rate. That's all. It just doesn't matter. As I mentioned before, in 2018, the Gallant government froze assessments, and it just caused total confusion with the department. It messed everything up. And as a lot of people would say, well, next year they're just going to have to make up for the time frame that they didn't increase assessments. So I don't know if we're going to continue as the years go by in being one of 2 provinces in Canada that do have this centralized system, or maybe if we might consider what the other provinces are doing. I guess we'll see. Also, the other thing I should mention is when assessments are separated from the property tax bill, on average it takes about 5 years for individuals to understand what's happening. So we're getting close to that point here with 2026 around the corner, so we shall see. Also, take note on your property tax bill. I'm looking at mine here right now. It shows that I have my provincial tax and then a provincial tax credit where it takes out the tax that is paid to the province, that is just all local tax. Keep in mind as well that here in the province of New Brunswick, as most jurisdictions in North America, we use the mass appraisal system. Assessors don't determine the market value. They reflect values established by the real estate market. We do have the spike protection mechanism that is in place. Since 2013, we've had the 10% spike protection mechanism in place. So for tax purposes only, when it comes to our assessed amount, anything over 10% is the max for that year, and the balance goes into future years. When we were in government, we did extend that to all properties, including vacant land. I believe it was effective 2025. So, yeah, here's my notes. Currently, the spike protection mechanism is in place for most owner-occupied residential properties with an assessment increase greater than 10%. This mechanism was implemented in 2013 to protect eligible homeowners from significant spikes in their assessment. This mechanism excludes new construction, recent sales, major improvements, and vacant land. And it was indeed beginning in 2025 where we expanded that permanent 10% spike protection mechanism to cover all properties, including vacant land. And actually, in my hometown of Oromocto, there is a problem here because it's a lot of turnover in Oromocto with the military coming and going, buying and selling, and immediately it goes back. That 10% spike protection mechanism is gone constantly, right? And it's really hard for people in my town to understand why their neighbor, their assessment is so much higher, their tax bill is so much higher than theirs because they can't benefit from that 10% spike protection mechanism. So I'm hoping in the near future government can do something about that because it's very unfair and very hard for people to understand why things are the way they are. I just want to throw this out there on that 10% spike protection mechanism. This government has implemented a 3% rent cap on renters. So why not go with a 3% spike protection mechanism on homes? Just throwing it out there. You know, what are we doing for homeowners, right? So I'm also thinking, we're talking about freezing assessments, which isn't going to help anybody, anywhere, anytime. It's a great sale and it sounds great in the paper. Why don't you freeze the tax? If you're telling people we're going to freeze your tax bill, you're not going to pay any more than you did last year. Or how about 2020? Wouldn't my neighbor like to go back from $9,000 to $5,000 a year? That'd be doing something, wouldn't it? Anyways, I'm just saying, I think that's interesting. And I'm going to go back to 2017 on property assessments. The previous Brian Gallant Liberal government and the Liberal fast track. When New Brunswickers hear our current Premier and the Liberals mention the word property assessment, their thoughts flash back to the recurring nightmares caused by the Liberal property assessment scandal of the Gallant Liberal government in 2017. Our current Premier was a staff member in Premier Gallant's office at the time when that scandal happened. The fast-tracked assessment process saw New Brunswickers slapped with high assessments for renovations that hadn't actually happened, and people's taxes shot up. This affected over 51,000 properties, and it was a directive from the Premier's office to the assessment team. They were told what they had to do. On the issue of property tax and assessments, the Liberals have a history, Madam Speaker, and that history isn't a good one. Again, 2018, they froze assessments again, and in retaliation of assessments being frozen back in 2018, 41 local governments increased their rate. So we have 89 local governments today. How many of them are going to increase their rate? We shall see. So on top of the fast track, I mean, I look at other things that happened at the time. Look at the senior asset grab. What a nightmare, treating seniors like that. Shameful under the previous Brian Gallant Liberal government. We did reverse it. Are they going to go there again? I hope not. I hope not. I mentioned the other day as well about nursing homes and senior citizens' homes, how we moved them out of the residential other category, that we recently put a 15% cut on the tax rate itself, and we moved them into the residential other, like apartment buildings and cottages, so they can get 50% off their property taxes. I'm begging this government not to go there. Don't touch it. Leave it right where it is. Again, their past precedes them. It didn't stop them from hurting seniors and their asset grab when they went into nursing homes and they considered their home as part of their assets. And anyways, spouses would be trapped in their homes. There was one lady that I knew. She had a 3-story Victorian home downtown Fredericton. Her husband wasn't well, landed in a nursing home. She couldn't sell her house. She couldn't sell her house. She didn't want to stay in a 3-story home anymore. Anyhow, the good news is that's all fixed. So I also mentioned about the provincial rate on the property taxes back in 2018. It's actually, here's our announcement on September 14th, 2018, how we will gradually eliminate the double tax, initially cut it in half when we can afford to do it, which we did. I believe it was 2023. The rate used to be 1.1233 per $100 worth of assessment, now dropped to 0.5617, cut in half. But something's got to be done now about how government can still benefit significantly because of these increase in assessments. And even when you freeze assessments, it doesn't matter because they're just going to up the rate. Here's my notes. I was talking about this the other day, about when we reduced the rate by 15% on non-residential businesses a few years back. It was at 2.186. The plan was to reduce it by 15% down to 1.8560. It was on its way. In come the Gallant government. Done. Reversed. That's over. But with these recent savings that we put through with our savings for the taxpayer by reducing the residential non-owner occupied to cut that in half, the residential other by 15%, the non-residential business by 15%, it's $112 million per year savings for the taxpayers. And tax right now, it's so outrageous for so many people. You know, I'm looking at this chart: gas tax, diesel tax, property tax, land transfer tax, HST, large business tax, workers' compensation rates. Madam Speaker, all went up in the years of 2015, 2016, 2017, under the Brian Gallant government, with our current Premier as a staff member behind the scenes. I fear what's coming, Madam Speaker. Their past precedes them. One of the military families that recently came here was showing me this, where they lived in Ontario. This house was listed $1,375,000. Want to take a guess on what the property taxes are? $3,666. So when people come here, they're outraged. They can't believe it. They're shocked at what our property taxes are. And here's how we thank our military people. Let's say it's a buyer's market and they get posted back to Ontario, or they get posted to Nova Scotia, or wherever they're posted to, and they can't sell their house. Well, they can't live in this house and live in another province. So what do? We charge them provincial property taxes because they can't live in the house. That's our thanks to people who fall into that type of a position. So it's really very difficult for these people here. That's our way of saying thank you for serving our country. These people are signing their lives on the dotted line. And when they get posted and can't sell their house, look what we do to them. It's outrageous. I just want to ask about my time. I only had 20 minutes. 2 minutes left? Okay. So, I have a quote from the Finance Minister in a May 6 article. Our government has committed to overhauling the property tax system to ensure stability, fairness, and affordability. And again, as I mentioned, freezing assessments for 1 year in 2026 is how you're starting this progress and the process. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Our leader on this side of the House stated the whole government is moving slower than it promised on property tax reform and using the assessment freeze as a gimmick to buy time for itself. They want to give the appearance that they are taking action, Madam Speaker. The province can increase the rates. The local governments can increase their rate. I stand corrected. A couple weeks ago, I said 49 governments back in 2018 increased the rate in retaliation of that when they froze assessments, but it is 41. And again, how about let's freeze or even lower property taxes for a year? I'd support that wholeheartedly. That's something that would actually make a difference. Please, somebody tell me how freezing assessments makes any difference at all. I just can't see it. It's making no sense to me. Municipalities will increase the mill rate. The province will reverse our tax reductions and so on. So I'm looking forward to a conversation. Maybe the finance minister and the Minister of Service New Brunswick can both explain to me how in the world this is going to make a difference at all. So based on everything I've seen the past 6 years, and in watching all of this since 1998 and dealing with local business owners, apartment owners, business owners, I just don't see it. And I wish I had more time to talk about the 1.4 to 1.7 and what happened there. There's only 2 local governments in the province that did it the right way, and that was Grand Lake and Nakawik were the only 2 that did it right. So I do not support this bill, and if I was a betting girl, I'd say very few of the Liberal MLAs would support it either if they had their option.